Hello and welcome to 14 Ways to Improve Your Newsletter Design. In this video from beehiiv, we are going to cover 14 ways that we've identified that leading newsletters implement great design and design tactics to improve engagement, improve open rates, and improve the brand of their newsletters. As we go through, we're going to make reference to various newsletters that we look at. Not all of them are on beehiiv. We wanted to look at just great looking newsletters, platform agnostic, but as you'll see, regardless of the platform, beehiiv's editor and theming tools really make it possible to emulate and create any kind of style that you might see out there. I do want to caveat that by saying that some of the newsletters that we use, they're not an endorsement of beehiiv. We look at their design and that's it. But, with each of these examples, they could all be recreated and in some cases have been recreated in beehiiv for illustrative purposes. As we go through, we're going to make reference to the beehiiv editor as well as the beehiiv theme settings. Now, if you're not familiar with what those look like or how those work, we encourage you to check out beehiiv if you're not a beehiiv user, or go to our beehiiv 101 series to learn more about actually how to use those settings. But I've broken this list down starting from the settings that we would change in the editor, and then changing the settings that we would make in the theme, and then moving towards changes we would actually make within a post itself. We don't mention it here, but if you are following along as you're creating your own newsletter and styling your own newsletter, we encourage you to take advantage of the templating capability. So creating a post in the editor and then saving it as a template so that you can save time for future versions of your publication. And if you're not on beehiiv yet for your newsletter, we encourage you to try our free trial. You can sign up at beehiiv.com. If you reach out to us, we can get you a free trial of our growth plan, which is our top tier plan, which is going to unlock all the bells and whistles and really get you growing really quickly. But short of that, look forward to sharing the rest with you. The last note is, as you move through this video, this is the second time filming this video, because the first time I went through and there was kind of like 12-ish examples that are ways that we could do this, and we actually realized that there was 14 full reasons or ways to improve your newsletter design that we covered. And so as you go through the video, you'll see a little bit of a discrepancy there, but the content was so great we didn't want to refilm it a second time. So starting from the top, what we have first is your background color and the borders that you may choose to use. So when we go to beehiiv, just as this example, we're going to have in the editor, we're going to have a couple different settings for background. So we can set the color, we can set the background of a specific post, of the actual post content. There can be a border we can set up. And then we can set the spacing that's going to be established around the right and left side and in the bottoms of these posts. So you can see in this example, we have kind of this off-white background. This is an example from a company called Accidentally Wes Anderson. This is their actual publication that they created, and so you can see how they use this off-white field and then white within their content to create a little bit of a contrast that really fits their vibe. If we look over here at The Local Optimist, which is a publication from the company Mad Happy, we can see that they use a green background. That's the entire thing is just green, and it's fits the Local Optimist brand. But there is no contrast between those two. It's just kind of a field of green with the content over top. We're going to see a very similar thing when we look at Milk Road. This is a beehiiv publication. They opt to use just pure white with the text on top. Very, very simple, very straightforward, minimalist. And then when we look at the G0 newsletter Signal, they actually use like this gray background. So it's neither off-white nor colored. It's just kind of an off gray, light gray, and that fits their purposes. So when we look at that, there's also the option, if we go into this editor, to create a border, and we encourage you folks to experiment with adding, borders of varying thicknesses. This will essentially kind of create that hard line around the outside of your publication that can draw the eye and just can make some visual distinction between the background and the content itself. Jumping to number 2, introducing a complementary font. Now, this is something that you see a lot of times when you want to create some visual distinction. So you can see that for this publication, they're using for these headers this courier type font, which has some serif aspects to it, and then for their actual body font, they're using an open sans font, which is going to be sans serif. So you can get that nice contrast between the two different types of fonts that looks really, really nice. In addition, they also have this third font that they use in their headers, which is even bigger, very large, very bold, sans serif, and just stands to make things more visually interesting. At the same time, you see this one, and this is one of those examples where it's going to bleed, where there's a couple different things going on here, but they actually use images, which we'll go on in a second, to have their headers be completely customized, not actual text, but images that they can use their custom font and feel for. Kind of contrastly, you can also simply use a very similar type font as the body font and either style it with different colors. You can make it bold, bigger, but in this case, being very, very similar rather than different to the body font, between the body and the headlines. And that's where you really see kind of the biggest contrast usually is between the headlines and the body content itself. Similar thing here, they use a very similar font, just much bigger and bold between headlines and the body. There are websites out there that you can look up that'll give you nice font pairings, and as we add functionality to beehiiv to import different custom fonts, those will be more valuable, but you can look within the editor to see what we have to offer right now, and you can see, for example, under body text, we have these font families. You could make Helvetica, which is a sans serif font, as the body font, and then have one of the headlines where the headlines all be this different type of style. Similarly, we kind of covered this a little bit, but adding color to a publication is a great way to create differentiation. In this case, there's a couple different colors that are being introduced. We have this like off red, this pinkish color for the headlines. We have this darker red for the actual larger font, and then we have some blues, some greens, big field of red for this button, but introducing colors that work well together. This yellow and this red, they're both a little bit off. They have this nice complementary feel. There's websites like color.adobe.com and others that are similar to it, where you can look up complementary colors that are different shades of the same color and whatnot. But adding those little subtle hints of color and lightness to a publication can give it a nice branded feeling, but also you can use those complementary colors to be visually pleasing. In terms of leveraging unique sections and styles, we offer the ability to create things like the ability to create things like these quote boxes, where you can use the quotes to specifically call out different sections. So this is the one that this publication, International Intrigue, uses. If you look at the example that we can do with beehiiv, it looks very similar. We'll go back just for a second. I think this is it. Yep. So you can see we can create this quote box, and that has a nice little border that has this light gray field. And as you can see, with the way that they use this is that it's a kind of quick bites of different stories that are going on around the world. You can use it to call out a summary of different different things. In the daily meditation newsletter I have right here that I use for tests sometimes, you can see we have this like quote that we can start the email with that has this nice yellow background. But this is going to be used sparingly, if at all, throughout the rest of the newsletter, and it just serves to add some visually interesting components to the publication. And so these settings are all defined within the themes here. We can go to block quotes. You can set the background colors. You can set the spacings and whatnot, and really create something and use that as a way to create some unique features that really draw the eye. Perfect. So diversifying font styles, this goes along with that, introducing a complementary font color, but is a little bit different. And so this email uses it really well. When we say diversifying font styles, we see that they really use great use of bold here to really draw the eye to kind of the main points of each of these sections. If you look at these, the content sections, they have, bold starts out these sections, and they, use some bold in the bullet points, to really draw the eye and set up the rest of what they are going to say. It's a way of just really breaking down the content. So if you're scanning it, you can see China's military at a glance. The different components under these bullets are spending, shipbuilding, combat experience, foreign military bases. And if you want to learn more about any of each of these, you can then read into them. But the way that these kind of pseudo headers are built, it makes it very easy to understand what you're looking at. In a similar way, they use the italics to represent a quote. So when we talk about different, diversifying font styles, it means not just putting everything in just regular normal size font, but using links within your content to link out to different content across the web. To see if there's other examples here. Yeah, just using different things. You see the bold that is the kind of pseudo header again. We see bold. We see links here that help break up the content. And the function is it's going to make it easier. It's going to help with readability, which is something we get into towards the end of this list. But when you make it really easy for your user to read a newsletter, they're going to get more out of it. They're going to enjoy it, and they're going to look forward to it. You can see different font styles. They're diversifying the way that they're doing the different sections here. You really see it across all of these well-designed newsletters. So next, moving into these custom headers. So one of the things you see pretty much universally, I'd say, across all of these different sections or all of these different publications is the use of headers, which are a class of text to really move the ball forward and really help with visual understanding and readability. So in this case, you can see that they use one repeated type of header here. And you'll see it right here using the green language to indicate that this is sponsored, but then again down here and again down here. So in this case, their headers are defined by this blue text, all caps, bold, followed by this line break that goes underneath of it. If we look at a publication like this one, you can see these headers are all custom headers, which they use images in order to, create. So these are actually going to be images that set up each section rather than different styles of text, but that's a completely legitimate way to do that. Over here, they're just using, simple bold text to set up these headers, but then each section, again, has this image-based, stylized font that defines a specific section. If we look over here at Milk Road's headers are larger. They're blue and they're all caps. And then when you look over here at G0, their largest headers, their top level, are this black bold font, and then you have the subheaders that come out. And so what we might do is when we're looking at a newsletter or when we're starting our newsletter and styling it, how is our newsletter going to be broken down? What is the different hierarchy that we go through when we're defining our content? In this case, they have, what I counted as 4 different levels of text. So we call this like the first level, which is going to be the highest order idea. It doesn't mean it has to be the biggest, but it's going to be kind of number 1 in terms of it's leading this content. So we have this one font style. This is the kind of header, the title for each of these, this specific article. So this is going to be number 2. We look right here and we see the third one. This is, again, a similar font, but it's bold and it's smaller. And then 4th, we recognize that we have these down here, which is, again, it's the same size or maybe slightly larger than the normal font, but so it's smaller than the number 3, but it is bold. And so with this in hand, what we can do is go to, we'll open up the theme over here. We can go to header text and we can actually define each of these. And so in order to do this, I'm going to actually jump into this mock-up I made for this International Intrigue newsletter. We'll go into it and we'll start editing the font. So if you go over here to theme and you go into header text, so what we've done is we've set the number 1, which we said was this font right here, this bold blue text, and we've set those settings. So the font family is the same as the regular text. The weight is bold. We're going to say we're going to give it more line height, give it a little bit more spacing. We can use a tool called What Font. And this is one I really like to understand like what the size of the font is and how big it is. So weight 700 means it's bold. You can see the size here and then the color. So we can actually grab this and it looks like they're using an off black. What we can do is go in here and for these headers we can set the off black color. I'll have a link to What Font in the notes. But we can use change these header colors so that they match. We'll actually go to the body text and we'll set the font color there as well. And we can go to the content breaks, and that's actually a black content break, same color as the rest of the content. So we go back to header text. We have this first H1 done. Now we know that from looking here that there's the line break comes with this, this header. And so in the theme, what we would do, knowing that they're not using the line breaks in any other way, if I'm them, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of the space around the break, make it as small as possible, and make it this 1. So what we end up with, if we save these changes, just making the 1 change to the first header, go to preview, we're able to see that this header with the line underneath of it, is looking remarkably similar to what is here, and we're able to make this great pixel perfect, wonderful looking headline. So then moving to number 2, we look at number 2. So go back to the theme. We'll go back over here. What font? We're going to see that this is size 22. And I'm not saying you shouldn't necessarily go through and copy a great looking newsletter, but this is just a way for you to get some inspiration and to understand what these other newsletters are doing. You go to the sample, H2 under header text. You can then, create the font size. So number 22, we know it's bold. You can play with the spacing between the elements. You can set the color. You're good to go. Similar thing with H3, just without going back. I know it's a size 18. These are kind of the third level down. Similar bold, same font as the body text. And then number 4 is this. And so in this case, didn't go below, level 4. But if you do have more styles that you want to create, you can do that. Similarly, we should go to the buttons, make sure that the button, background color is going to match what we want it to. So in this case, we'll say the underline color. We want our links, generally anything clickable, to be a very similar color. So we'll make this color in case there's any buttons we want to add, and then lists, make sure that they're all the same font. They are. So we've got now our header text done, and we're good to go. So the next thing is a strong header image. The header image can be described as this like logo that we're going to put at the top of the message. So each of these emails has like this custom logo with the name. Local Optimist Digest. And this is one of the commonalities we see across all of these. This custom, logo and header that goes at the very top. In this case, you can have, somebody sponsoring the newsletter as well, but we're going to see these logos across everywhere. So in beehiiv, what we allow you to do is in the email header, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can upload a logo directly to the header and, change the length, add a link to it, and so forth. Or you can actually go within the newsletter editor itself and you can insert, the header. So in this case, until we, launch support for adding those presented by, sponsored links, what we're going to do is just add this image up here to the top. So now when we preview it, we get the same effect. But what this does is allows you to really, really brand the experience and make it look very cohesive. It looks really good. People are going to expect and recognize that name, and you can start building your brand. In beehiiv specifically, if you are interested in doing this, sometimes you might want to get rid of the post name and the post title so that, this will populate in a second, but maybe you don't want to actually show the name of the post in the actual message itself. You want to just keep it here. You can do that by going into the email settings into the post settings, and then decide to show the title and these in the email, or decide not to. So if you go back here and look in the email version, we're going to see that show up here because it's defined, but you can turn that off, and that's a decision that is can help with the design of your message. Next is styling content breaks. So we already went through and showed one version of content breaks, but there's others where you might want to go into the theme, and instead of just using the regular black single pixel wide content break, you might want to modify it. So you may say you want it to be red. We'll make it dotted, and we'll give it like a 3 thickness. We see plenty of newsletters that do something like this, where you can make it a little bit more visually interesting. You can modify that width. So maybe you don't want it to go all the way across, but we just want to do like a small little, break there. We can change it to dashed. Make those dashes a little bit bigger. You can change it to, like a purplish color. In this case, would match the publication a little better if it's that blue. But we can go in here and make these, a little bit more interesting than just black. You can change the space. And then the other way we can do this that can be really, really useful, and this is, we see this probably a little bit more commonly in terms of custom design. What we're going to do is take a look at something like the Local Optimist, where they're actually using an image that they dropped into this publication as that line break. And that's a kind of an interesting, fun thing that just adds to the brand. Milk Road does it as well. Rather than having like a line, you can just upload an image that acts as that break. It's a cool thing to do if you have like a logo or a motif that fits that. And so that covers that one. Next, styling images. Again, if we go back to Milk Road, you can see that their style, they have this like line box around their images, and they also have this radius, this border radius that creates little curved corners to their images. That can be really useful. They use a lot of screenshots, a lot of images that they add this blue border to, and it's just something you see across all of their images that just sets the images apart, breaks them out a little bit. When we look at Local Optimist, obviously they're using a lot of custom imagery. These are kind of similar. They're using, this cutout within the image itself to make it, just seem a little bit more interesting here as well. But another good example from International Intrigue, you can see their use of GIFs in terms of, embedded within their email to kind of add some motion. But yeah, the other, and then, which one was it? I think this one as well. There might be an image here. But basically, using, I guess this one is the best way. You can curve these edges to make them interesting, but we covered that a second ago. Next is utilizing different background colors within the actual email itself to add some interest to it. So I don't know if there's an example here, but I can certainly jump to the daily meditation newsletter. Oh, we're still in this one. There we go. So in this daily meditation newsletter, you can see we have this strong header. We use this custom, quote area, this yellow background to bring the eye. We use a nice little dark border that breaks up this light field with the white background, and then this black and white lotus as like a line break, kind of a pseudo line break, but using an image for the line break. Custom images for our headers. We style the images with this border radius, and you can see in this section, as we introduce the daily meditation details, we use this gray background to contrast with the previous section's white background to show that you're transitioning from one section to the next. So that would be an example of using these different backgrounds in different sections and customizing each sections as so. So optimizing for readability, this is kind of a general theme. We've talked about this throughout the video, making sure that as we go from section to section, as we scroll down the newsletter, it's super easy to read. I think that International Intrigue does a really great job of this, just in terms of the hierarchy of how they break things out. They make great use of headers, body text, lists, and then within the content itself, bold sections, bold text that shows kind of just the highlights. If you're trying to just skim it, you really get a good sense of what they're trying to talk about very easily. Lastly, there's a lot of newsletters that will end their newsletters with a personal sign-off that really brings it home and connects to the user. So in this case, Milk Road generally ends their emails with a picture of Vitalik from, this is the Ethereum founder. They have this custom sign-off where it's Sean and Ben, and they have links to their beehiiv profiles, which I think takes you to Twitter. But if you look at some of these other ones, they're not necessarily required. A lot of them, we do have these referral programs. So beehiiv has a built-in referral system where a lot of, where is it? Oh, this is the web version, so you won't see it. But in the email version, they'll have these, referral programs that, they end with, if you enjoyed this newsletter, feel free to refer your friends and bring them into it. Same thing here, but they have this custom, section at the end where you can share feedback, go to the store, and whatnot. So kind of a personal sign-off or rewards program can work really, really well. Let's see how they ended. I think, this is, the sign off of the journalists that create this newsletter. So those are the tactical things that you can do to really kind of amp up the design of your newsletter. We've kind of gone in depth into the beehiiv editor a little bit more. So if you looked at, the initial 101 on how to theme your newsletter, this is going to go into a little bit more detail. For making things look good and actually providing, strong design, you can, Google things like color pairs. Again, I'll post links to the resources I mentioned. So I mentioned What Font as well as Adobe Color. And I'll also drop in a resource for, font pairings, for kind of how to learn more about which font pairings go nicely together. And then using hierarchy of text in order to really tell your story. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Feel free to link us to any newsletters that you think are done particularly well or that look really good. Would love to see those, but these are just kind of some of the basics of ways that you can really differentiate your newsletter, really let your brand shine through, and create experiences for your readers that they're going to remember, they're going to want to share, and they're going to want to look forward to each day as they open their messages. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing what you build, and we're looking forward to growing with you. Have a great day.